We're reporting on news coming out of the White House as the president draws a line in the sand, telling House Republicans in public to just show him the money, explain their budget.
Mr. President, what are you going to tell Speaker McCarthy when he says he wants to negotiate? What do you tell him?
Show me your budget, I'll show you mine.
Show me the budget. Biden is referring to how House Republicans have repeatedly come up empty-handed when asked a straightforward question, given that they're now in charge of the House. What do they actually want to cut? And this is all against the context of a possible debt showdown looming.
If Social Security and Medicare are off the table, as you just said, where do Republicans want to cut spending?
That's going to be part of the dance.
Well, the dance is here, and that's the context for the president's meeting late today. This was his first meeting with the new speaker, Kevin McCarthy. We don't have video from inside it because the White House kept it as a closed press first summit. But Biden, we know, has sat at that Resolute desk before. He's had his share of high-stakes meetings, and he watched as vice president when then-President Obama faced a similar effort to ransom the economy. House Republicans are threatening a similar brinksmanship now. We don't know how far they'll go. But they're also having internal fights with a narrow majority about what they want to do and what they want to really cut. House Republicans say they might refuse to confirm the spending that is already basically agreed to. They've threatened to crash the global economy by not raising the roof on the debt. You've heard about all of this before. We've covered it. But they basically are demanding vague and large spending cuts without defining them. Republicans won't say what they want. That's not a DNC attack I'm showing you. It's not an attack ad. That's just the New York Times reporting accurately on the problem in this shadow boxing. So let me tell you this tonight, because we have our experts here. We have Chair Komanduri here, and we have a House Republican with a lot of experience here who says there is a better way through this than burning the House down. But you have to understand something. We can, as a nation, try to make sure that we have open, transparent debates about democracy. You've heard me report before on the fact that there are plenty of Americans who think that certain things are too expensive or taxes are too high. And the way you traditionally deal with that is elect people who agree with you and say in public what the truth of your positions are. We had a top Republican on this show recently, and one of the things I asked him was, are you going to govern transparently or not? Are you going to do secret side deals, or we don't even know what you stand for? And that isn't just some extreme plank within the party right now. I want to show you many of the Republicans, including some in leadership, who don't seem to be able to say what it is they want to cut.
We have got to get control over spending in Washington.
Now that we have a Republican majority who's serious about making spending cuts, who's serious about trying to get government under control, government spending under control,
we need to attach to it fiscal controls or other spending cuts. Exactly what those are, we're not willing to lay out here today.
We're all behind Kevin and wishing him well in the negotiation.
What about the debt ceiling? Any chance you'd vote for
no.
it? Even if you had even if you had all your priorities? If you had every priority, you'd still vote
no.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I hear back home.
No, 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 with a giggle. But this is about governing, not just what you might hear back home from some people who might be parroting back to you what they're hearing from the party. Now, they did raise the debt ceiling 3 times under Trump while raising the debt. We recently reported on that, the massive increase in the debt under Bush and Trump, which is why much of this just looks like politics. You also heard there a senator say, well, we just can't tell you what we're going to cut. Well, you wouldn't want to be a barber for any of these folks, because they'd sit down in the chair, and when you try to talk, we cut in the back, we cut in the top, we do the sideburns up. I want to cut a lot of the hair, but I can't tell you where or how. That doesn't leave you anywhere to go, which is why it either looks like politics or BS. And I'm being as diplomatic as I can. Now, McCarthy just left this meeting, which again was closed press. We in the journalism community, we think it'd be great if the White House would open more of this up so we could at least see the 2 of them together, maybe see them take questions together. We think that would give us more information. For whatever reason, we don't have that. What we have is Speaker McCarthy after the meeting. So you can hear what he says. This is how he broke it down.
Mr. Speaker, where should those budget cuts come from right now? Medicare and Social Security, the White House insists Republicans want to cut. What cuts do you want?
Well, let me be clear about that, and I've been clear many times. No, we're not talking about that. And to really be able to do this right, I'm not going to negotiate this in the press, right? I respect the conversation we had together, and we will continue that.
You look at that, and I'll tell you this. The best level kind of estimation you could say is that the speaker and the president agreed that they might get more done in private, and hey, they have every right to do that. The other way to look at it, the problem for someone like McCarthy with his caucus is if he doesn't lay out in public with some support what they're really going to do and a plan to do it potentially with Democrats, if he stays super partisan about this in the House, well, they may just be kicking the can down the road for a fight that, well, the last time he had one of these fights took him a lot of votes to get anywhere. And that was when everything was on the line for his whole career. I want to bring in two people who know these issues inside and out, a veteran of several presidential campaigns, including the Obama campaign, Chey Komanduri, and Brendan Buck. He was a former aide to a different speaker, Speaker Ryan and Speaker Boehner, who went through exactly these kind of clashes. You can see him. We don't talk much about how people look, Brendan, but you're easy to spot in those photos because you seem to be pretty tall next to both of your former bosses. Welcome to both of you.
Good to be here, Ari.
Thanks.
How you doing, Brendan?
I'm good. Thank you.
Good. I want to give you a chance to respond to what seems to be a little bit of a tension there within the Republican caucus. I'm going to let you know that's what we want to hear you on. And Chey, I'm going to bring you in first on whether you think there is any progress that the president has gotten the speaker to try to do this privately. Maybe they think they have some way out of this. And what does it mean when that many top Republicans say, cut, 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 but I won't tell you how?
Well, what it tells me is that this is not a negotiation. This feels like a shakedown. This feels like Kevin McCarthy is a character from The Sopranos saying, nice country you got here. A shame if anything happens to it. I mean, normally you campaign on ideas, and when you're elected, you enact those ideas, or you try to enact those ideas. The problem here was the Republicans did not run on anything that they're talking about now. They did not run on the 30% sales tax. They did not run on cuts to Social Security and Medicare. They did not even run that much on sort of cutting the defense budget, which you're now hearing a lot more discussion about. What they ran on was Mr. Potato Head. They ran on Dr. Seuss. They ran on the idea that there might be that we might teach that racism exists in schools, or that racism exists, or that it existed once in this country, et cetera, CRT in schools, don't say gay. Those are sort of the issues that Republicans ran on, not anything that they're now discussing or claiming to negotiate with Joe Biden.
Brendan?
Yeah, I actually, believe it or not, don't disagree with a lot of that. I will say I don't think there's any real reason for Republicans to be laying out exactly what they're asking to cut right now. Look, we have a long way to go through here. This is going to be a negotiation. I was deeply involved in the 2011 debt limit standoff. They weren't even the first face-to-face conversations between then Biden and Eric Cantor, who were leading those conversations, until May 5th. So, we've got a bit of a runway here until this is actually, right in front of us. What I will agree with, though, is that Republicans are coming out and saying that this is our moment. Like, the debt is a huge long-term challenge, and this is the moment where we need to do something about it. But they're also coming out and saying, well, let's first take off Medicare, let's take off Social Security, let's not cut the defense budget. There's a lot of things we don't want. We don't want to do revenue. And I don't necessarily have a problem with that politically. But if you are saying this is the greatest threat to us, you don't throw those things overboard right away, because the rest of the pie is pretty small. So I just wish that Republicans had taken a little more longer term view of how to go about this. I do agree that you do have to win the argument on some of these things. And I think you can win the argument. I do think we need deficit reduction. I just wish that people had taken more time to make the argument for why that is necessary and lay out a plan ahead of time of what that might look like. Because right now there's not a lot of shape around it.
You're hitting two things. I know Chey's eager to get in here, and I'll let him in. But you're hitting two things. One, if you actually talk about the regular spending outside of those pretty popular programs, there isn't a lot of ways to cut. And you're sort of acknowledging that truth while saying that you have every right to share your policy views here. That's why you're here. Well, you would like to see that at least initially on the table. And I think second, then the question becomes, how honest are they being about the level of cuts? In other words, if you're going to say, well, we really want to shave 2 and 3% here and there, can we do it? There's plenty of Democrats, Manchin included, who we've all heard about, who'd be at the table for that. The issue is trying to allegedly ransom that which they couldn't otherwise win. I want to let Jay respond. I also, Brendan, want to play for you what Congressman Gates has said after going so hard at leadership. He was striking a bit of a different tone. I wanted to get both of your thoughts on this as well. Take a listen.
Well, he wasn't my first choice, but this is politics. We don't pitch underhand. At the end of the day, I ran out of stuff to ask for, Ari, and after we got the concessions on policy, on personnel, and on procedure, I didn't vote for McCarthy, but we did allow him to assume the speakership with less than 218 votes. That's how Nancy Pelosi got there. He's our speaker now. Long live the speaker.
Yeah. Jay, and then Brandon on all of the above.
Yeah, I think one area I would disagree with Brandon on is the idea that there's some kind of philosophical framework that is where Republicans are approaching these negotiations. There is, to me, no philosophical framework at play here. I mean, that would make sense in terms of what Brandon was saying. You have a sort of a general direction you want to go in, and then you get more specific down the road. That is not what is happening here. What is happening here is Republicans campaigned on a lot of culture war items. They now want to create a debt ceiling standoff as another episode in the ongoing GOP culture war. This is content for Fox News. It's content for Tucker Carlson. This is content for Steve Bannon's podcast. That, I believe, is what is really going on.
That they want the fight more than the outcome, and that's why the discussion about getting the outcome to you gets fuzzy.
Exactly, and that's why they're withholding the plot details, if you will. They're they're making it up as they go along. This is sort of like improv. Not improv comedy, but improv budget negotiations, improv, I would say, extortion and hostage taking.
And I don't.